Well, good morning. Welcome back. This is Linear Functions video number 12, and today we will be looking at perpendicular lines. Okay. Before we get started, I want you to write this definition on in your definition sheet. I told you this, I believe, in the last video. A slope multiplied by its perpendicular slope is equal to -1. And again, we call this the definition of perpendicular slopes. Okay, definition of perpendicular slopes. A slope multiplied by its perpendicular slope is equal to -1. Again, symbol for perpendicular, it looks like an upside down T. Now, first off, let's establish something about perpendicular lines. Given a line, question, does this have a positive slope or a negative slope? Hopefully you say negative. Okay, the line is going downhill left to right. And if I draw a perpendicular line, remember that perpendicular means forms a right angle or 90-degree angle. I try to do my best here to be right on. Okay, if I draw a line that's perpendicular, meaning that it forms a right angle or a 90-degree angle, notice that the perpendicular line has a positive slope. So the original line had a negative slope, the perpendicular line has a positive. Again, perpendicular means 90-degree angle. Okay, notice how many degrees are in a circle. Hopefully you say 360. Okay, we have a 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle, another 90-degree angle, and a fourth 90-degree angle. 90 plus 90 plus 90 plus 90 equals 360. So what we've established here is that if one line has a negative slope, the perpendicular line will have a positive slope. Now, let me show you an example. Okay, so let's call this, let's just make a chart here. We're going to call this the first slope, and we're going to call over here this the perpendicular slope. If I give you a slope of, say, 3, okay, a line has a slope of 3, okay, or maybe let's start with -3. A line has a slope of -3. And let's imagine that this line here, going downhill, has a slope of -3. My question is, what is the slope of the perpendicular line? Okay, well, we do know this. If the first line has a slope of -3, the other line must have a positive slope. Okay, so let's see if we can figure this out using this definition. So if a line has a slope of -3, can we figure out the perpendicular slope? The answer is yes. So let's set up the formula. It says that a slope multiplied by the perpendicular slope is equal to -1. Now let's take -3 and throw it in for the slope here. We end up with -3 multiplied by the perpendicular slope is equal to -1. We can now, to solve this for the perpendicular slope, notice that -3 is being multiplied. We can divide by -3, divide by -3, and we end up with what? The perpendicular slope is equal to, what happens to these two negatives? They cancel. The perpendicular slope is equal to positive 1/3. Okay, so we've established that the perpendicular slope is positive 1/3 using the definition. Now, it makes sense. If one line, or the original line, had a negative slope, we would agree that the perpendicular line has some sort of positive slope. In this case, a positive 1/3 slope. Now, there's a trick to figuring this out. Watch. Okay, so if we say that a given line has a slope of -3, we can write that as -3 over 1. Again, we don't actually write this on our paper, but this is what we think in our head. -3 over 1. Notice, what happens if we flip this? Okay, what is -3 over 1? -3 over 1 flipped. Well, -3 over 1 flipped, we call this the reciprocal of -3, would be -1/3. Okay? Now, if we change the sign of the -1/3, we would end up with what? Positive 1/3. So the trick is this. You do not have to actually use this formula to calculate the slope of the perpendicular line. Instead, what you can do is simply take the original slope, find its reciprocal, or that is, flip it, and change the sign. So let's practice. What if I give you that a line has a slope of 1/2? Okay? To find the perpendicular slope, we're going to take the 1/2 and we are going to flip it, or find its reciprocal, which would be, well, hopefully you agree, 1/2. If we find the reciprocal of 1/2 or flip it, it would be 2/1. Okay? And now change its sign. That would be -2/1, which is just negative 2. So to find the perpendicular slope, find what we call the negative reciprocal of the original slope. We're going to flip it and change the sign. 1/2 becomes 2 over 1, and then we change its sign to negative. Okay, now, if I give you a slope of negative 3/2, can you find the perpendicular slope? Hopefully you say yes. We can flip it or find its reciprocal. Okay, if we flip negative 3/2, that would be negative 2/3, then change the sign would give us positive 2/3. So, if this original line had a slope of negative 3 over 2, then to find the perpendicular slope, or the slope of the perpendicular line, we would flip it. Okay, let's write, m equals negative 3/2. We would flip it and change the sign. We'll find the negative reciprocal. So flip negative 3 over 2, we get negative 2/3. Change the sign, which is positive 2/3. We get a slope of our perpendicular line of positive 2/3. So flip it and change the sign, or find the negative reciprocal. Okay, so this is the explanation of how to find perpendicular slope. Now, let's look at the information given for this problem. Notice it says that we're trying to find, well, it's asking you to graph a line, okay? Notice that the line passes through the point negative 3, 2. Again, we need two pieces of information. We need a point, and based on the other videos, I assume that you're pretty good with this by now, and a slope. So we need a point, we need a slope, and notice it gives us a point that the line passes through. The line that we're trying to find passes through the point negative 3, 2. And we now need to establish a slope. Okay? Now, reminding you, what is this other information here? Okay, this other information is the information for a different line. Okay, so if you want to put a box around this and write this is a different line. Okay. Okay, this is a different line, the equation in standard form of a different line, and we want to find a point and a slope for our line. Okay, so our line passes through the point negative 3, 2, and we need to find a slope. So question, what could we do to find a slope? Hopefully you remember from the previous video that if we know the slope of this other line, then we could use that information to find the slope of our line. Okay, so let's take this standard form equation, 2x minus y equals 5, remembering that we cannot find a slope unless we convert this to slope-intercept form. Okay, so to convert to slope-intercept form, we are going to solve for y. Okay, that means get y by itself. Take the 2x, move it to the other side, we end up with negative y equals, the 2x moves, becomes negative 2x, and we already have a positive 5 on the right. Now, notice y is not by itself, we now have to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, all signs change. So we end up with y equals, this becomes positive 2x, and positive 5 becomes negative 5. Notice we have the slope-intercept equation for the other line. Okay? Now, in the slope-intercept equation, recalling y equals mx plus b, our slope is 2. Now, again, there is some other information here. It says that this other line is what? Perpendicular to the line that we are trying to find. Okay, so notice the slope of the perpendicular, or this other line, which is perpendicular, has a slope of 2. To find our slope, we have to take the perpendicular slope, flip it, and change its sign. So a slope of 2, okay, to find the perpendicular slope, remember, flip it, 2 over 1 flips and becomes 1/2, or we find the reciprocal, which is 1/2, and change the sign. So we would have a slope of negative 1/2. So flip it, change the sign, and now we have the slope of the line that we're trying to graph. Now, your directions for this problem are to graph both lines, okay, on the same graph. Now, so start with the line that we're trying to find, okay? 3, I think a 6 by 6 should be enough. Or, again, I always draw, I think, 5 by 5. Okay, negative 3, 2 is our point, so that means 3.3, 3 units to the left, 2 units up, okay? And the slope is negative 1/2. Okay, so this means from here, remember, rise over run, go down 1, right 2. So from here, down 1, right 2. and down 1, right 2. Okay, let's graph the line. And this is the line that you were trying to find. It passes through the point -3, 2, and is perpendicular to this other line. Recalling the other line had a slope of 2. The line that we're trying to find, since it's perpendicular, has a slope that is the negative reciprocal of the other line. We took the other slope, which was 2/1, flipped it, and changed the sign. We ended up with -1/2 slope. Okay, so this is the line that we were trying to graph. Before we graph the other line, I want you to write the equation of the line that we were trying to find. So you have to write the equation, and remember the easiest equation to write is point-slope form. Okay? Point-slope form. Point-slope form says start with y, then opposite the y value, since the y value is 2 minus 2 equals, now our slope, which is -1/2, is quantity x, and then opposite the x value. Since the x value is -3, we have +3. So the equation of this line, and go ahead and write it next to the line, is y minus 2 equals -1/2 times quantity x plus 3. Okay? Now, before you're finished, you have to also graph the other line. Okay, so recalling, in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, we have to gain two pieces of information, or take a point and a slope out of this equation. Recalling, the point is the value on the outside, okay, represented as a special type of point, y-intercept. We write, notice it starts with 0, and then -5, so the point is 0, -5, and slope is 2. So let's graph the point 0, -5, which is here. And the slope is +2. This means go up to right 1, from here up to right 1, and let's graph this line. We can do it again, up to right 1, and graph the line. Question, do these lines appear to form 90-degree angles? Hopefully you say yes. If you're on graph paper, it should be very accurate. Okay? And let's write the equation of this other line. There's no need to find the equation. Notice that you have either standard form or slope-intercept form already on the board for this other line. So it does not matter. You can write either equation next to the line. I'm going to go ahead and write the slope-intercept form, which is y equals 2x minus 5, y equals 2x minus 5. And you have successfully graphed the line that you were trying to find and its perpendicular line. Okay, notice the line that we were trying to find had a negative slope. The perpendicular line has a positive slope. All right, so that's just a quick brief on perpendicular lines. Now, before we finish this video, I want to discuss with you guys one other topic. You guys are used to seeing equations of lines that have both x and y in the equation. I'm going to show you equations of lines that do not have both an x term and a y term. Okay, so we're going to look at, first off, y equals 5. I want you to notice this is the equation of a line, okay? And I want you to notice that there is no x term in this equation. It just says y equals a number. Okay, so we just have y, but we do not have x. Let's go ahead and draw a graph. I'm just going to show you first what this is. Okay, so y equals 5. Let's go ahead and write next to this. This is a horizontal line. Okay, horizontal means left and right. Okay. Y equals 5. Now, y equals 5 is a line that is horizontal and crosses the y-axis at a height of 5. So to graph this line, write y equals 5 next to it. And I want you to notice something about all the points that lie on this line. Okay, this point, I want you to notice all the locations on this line. What this says is graph all points. Y equals 5 means graph all points whose y values are 5. So let's look at the points that lie on this line. This point is the point 0, 5. This point is the point 1, 5. This point is the point 2, 5. And this point is the point 3, 5. Notice, all of these points share what in common? They share a y value of 5. Okay, so have we graphed, does this line represent infinitely many points? Hopefully you say yes, infinitely many points with a height of what? A height of 5. Okay, now, let's also graph the line y equals -2. Okay, y equals -2. So what would this tell us, hopefully you say, this tells us to graph all points that have a height or a y value of -2. Recalling, we're going to think of y here. Quickly, this is our y-axis, this is our x-axis. We're going to think of y as representing the height. So height is positive, height is negative. Height is positive, height is negative. Height is positive, height is negative. Where is the height 0? Okay, hopefully you say that the height is 0 on the x-axis. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph all points that have a height of -2. Okay, so here's a line here. If you put your pencil horizontally on your paper, maybe this will help. Here's a line horizontally that has a height of 5. Here is a line horizontally that has a height of 4. Okay, this would be the line y equals 2. This would be the line y equals 1. This would be the line y equals 0. This would be the line y equals -1. And the line y equals -2 is a line that is horizontal that passes through -2 on the y-axis. And again, all of these points have a height of -2. Okay, lastly, let's graph y equals 0. Okay, putting your pencil horizontally on your paper. This is a line, y equals 5, y equals 4, y equals 3, y equals 2, y equals 1. And this would be the line y equals 0. It seems counterintuitive because the line y equals 0 is actually the x-axis. So notice, y equals 0 is the x-axis. This line here is y equals -2. This line up here was y equals 5. Okay. Now, all of these lines have a slope of 0. Okay. So each of these lines has a slope equal to 0. So we say m equals 0. Here's a quick reminder. Okay. So if I put my arm out like this, all right, what is the slope of this line? Hopefully you say slope is 0, but let me explain why again. Okay, if my line rises, okay, if this arm represents a line, this is a rising line. This has a positive slope, okay? If my arm is falling, this represents a line with what? A negative slope. If we say what? Positive slope, negative slope, positive slope, negative slope, where is the slope 0? What is between the positives and the negatives? Hopefully you say between positive and negative is 0. So it makes sense. These lines have a slope of 0. Now, also, you must know, okay, so we call these horizontal lines. You must know if I write the equation x equals 5, okay, this is called a vertical line. And I want you to notice that this equation just has an x term, but it does not have a y term. Up here, these equations have y terms, but they do not have x terms. This is a vertical line where? A vertical line at 5. So we're going to graph a vertical line at 5. Okay, now what helps is putting your pencil vertically on your paper. So if you put your pencil vertically on your paper, okay, this would be vertical at 0. Okay, now if we put our pencil vertically, this would be a vertical line at 0, a vertical line at 1, a vertical line at 2, a vertical line at 3, a vertical line at 4, and a vertical line at 5. So if we want to graph the vertical line x equals 5, it is the line that crosses through 5 on the x-axis, and it's vertical. Let's look at all of these points on this line. Okay? Notice that up here, all of the points had y values that were the same. The top line was all points whose y values were 5. On this line, all of what? Hopefully you can guess that all of the x values will be 5. Let's look. This point, this point, this point, this point, and this point. Let's look. This point is 5, 0. This is the point 5, 1. This is the point 5 units right, 2 units up, 5, 2. This is the point 5 units right, 3 units up, or 5, 3. And this is the point 5, 4. And there are many, 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 many more points. But what do you notice about all of these points? All of these points have x values of what? 5. So when I say graph the line x equals 5, what this means is graph all points whose x values are 5. And how many points have x values of 5? Okay, hopefully you say there are infinitely many. Okay, infinitely many points that have x values of 5, forming a line. Now, if I say graph the line x equals -2, okay, x equals -2, what helps is to put your pencil vertically. So you have to remember this. You have to remember y means horizontal line, x means vertical line. Okay, so x equals -2 would be a vertical line where? Okay, here's a vertical line at 0, here's a vertical line at +1. Here, maybe help you here. To the right is positive, to the left is negative. Right is positive, left is negative. So if we're at x equals -2, we are going to be vertically to the left of the y-axis. Okay, so x equals -2 is here. Okay, it is 2 units left of the y-axis. And this is the line x equals -2. Over here was the line x equals 5. And lastly, I'm going to ask you to graph the line x equals 0. Okay, x equals 0 is a line where? Hopefully you say this line is the y-axis, which is really counterintuitive. X equals 0. So it's opposite. It's opposite of what we expect. X equals 0 is the y-axis, and y equals 0 is the equation of the x-axis. Okay, now, all of these lines have slopes that are undefined. Okay? Slope is undefined. And maybe this helps here. Maybe this helps. Undefined, you can think of undefined as the concept of infinity. Watch. Okay, here is the slope of 0. Here is the slope of +1. Here is the slope of +2. Here is the slope of +3, +10, +100. +1,000, +1,000,000, and the closer we get, +1,000,000,000,000, and then the closer we get to vertical, the more it becomes infinite. So vertical, perfectly vertical, is the concept of infinity. Okay, slope is what? Slope is undefined. Okay, vertical lines do not have a slope. Okay, this is not a value. Okay, this means it does not make sense to talk about a vertical line having a slope. So vertical line, a slope of a vertical line is what we say undefined. Okay, now, one way you can kind of remember this, here, if I write the equation y equals, for this line down here, the equation is y equals -2. If you have trouble remembering slope of a horizontal line is 0, think of it this way. You know y equals mx plus b. Okay, so you can think of the line y equals -2 as being a line that is y equals 0x minus 2. Notice that there is no x. And so we can see that the slope is what? The slope is 0. Remember that m, or the slope, is the value in front of x. So we can see that if we write the equation of the line y equals -2, it looks very similar to slope-intercept form. So we can write it as y equals 0x minus 2 and see that a horizontal line has a slope of 0. Okay, that concludes this video, so you just need to be very careful to pay attention, or just, it's pure memorization here. Y equals a value is a horizontal line, x equals a value is a vertical line. Okay? All right, that concludes this video.